Yes.
This meeting is being recorded.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all. I'm Filippo Sanesi. At the moment, I am global operational and marketing and partnership for OVH Cloud for the startup program. And before that, I used to lead the startup program for OVH Cloud in Northern Europe, and currently working with Fantastic and Purdy. So very happy to be here. Quick, quick overlook about my background. Actually, I started my career working for an AI startups. My first role was actually to deal with all the POCs that we were doing back in the days, and so dealing a lot with corporates and their requirements. After that, I moved into acceleration. I was working at startup bootcamp, fintech, and insurtech back in the days. Again, dealing and managing all the sponsoring partner of the program and scouting for startups on their behalf. So I know a lot about what corporates are looking for and how they um, tend to work generally with startups. And after that, I worked for 5 years for an insurance company, working in the innovation department, responsible for the external partnership. So again, bringing in potential startups and tech vendors generally, and helping them navigating through a very complex and large company. So yeah, very happy to be here and share my knowledge about how to do things in a smarter and a lean way so that you can get partnership with corporates and you can sell your products and services.
Perfect. Okay. Before I ask the first question, for those of you who don't have your camera switched on, please switch it on unless you're driving or doing something where you can't. Again, makes a big difference. You hear us say this every single time because it really does make a big difference. Okay. So I guess there's probably two batches of founders. One who their sole customer base are large corporates and enterprises, and then the other where maybe they sell to SMEs or they sell actually to consumers, and then they're hoping to sell to corporates slightly later down the line. And I guess for that second batch, they probably already have a proof of concept or something to go in with in conversations. For those first batch of founders who their only customer base are large corporates, and in order to get that initial traction, they have to figure out how to get their foot in the door with where it's large enterprises. What's the very first step that you would suggest founders take?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's really the basic, like do your own research. I know this sounds pretty basic, but there's so many corporates out there in the UK, in Europe, globally. So you really need to understand which corporate you're going after. Let's say, let's pick an industry, banking. Okay, well, you're going after banking. There's so many, of course, corporates in there. You need to assess where the corporates are in their innovation journey, meaning how structured they are in terms of potentially working with external provider, especially startups. So if you think about the classic Gartner hype cycle, there's certain corporates that they're very excited and they have a call, or they're trying to deal with a lot of people, but then as they learn, the curve goes down and it becomes more efficient. So you need to understand first of all which corporate you're going after, where are they in their innovation journey. Are they just fishing to understand what's out there, or are they serious about working with external partners? Once you establish that, you need to, again, sounds very basic, but you need to read their financial statement, and you need to read everything about what they're doing, their finance, why are they doing it, where are they located, what kind of budget do they have behind all the potential innovation activities. Do they have a corporate venture capital arm, for example? Do they have a startup innovation hubs or an accelerator? So once you identify those little things, you know where to start, because if they have, for example, an innovation team or a corporate venture capital team, that those are the people in the organization that are there technically to listen to you, or to receive your pitch deck or your ideas. So I would say first, do your research, read about the company, read about the financial statement, read about all the appendix that they have, understand the appetite for this sort of partnership, identify the stakeholders in your in their company that are the ears of the company in terms of innovation, understand what kind of activity do they do, their maturity, and then from that moment, once you identify the corporate and you know what they're doing, if it resonates with your business, with your values and your product, then you can identify those champions in the company that could help you. Generally, again, as I said, the innovation team is there to really help you, or sometimes it's open innovation or open ecosystem or digital transformation. So understand where those specific departments are in the organization. Could be under the chief operating officer, or sometimes they have again, the innovation department. So understand how um, those people works, and what are their dependencies inside the organization. Could be that they are under IT, or could be that they are embedded in every single unit. So if you understand that, you can then understand the way how they think and how they go about doing partnership. Once you have done all this sort of research and you have a clear idea of the corporates that you want to go after, how they're structured, who are the key decision makers, then you start doing, of course, ask for introduction to your ecosystem support. You might have friends or investors or accelerator that they might know that specific person. So ask them maybe to make an intro or to vouch for you. And then, of course, you need to attend a lot of networking events or conferences. And, if you are targeting, let's say, I don't know, a bank, let's say HSBC, just one, then you go to conferences, see what they do, speak with their team, if they're on a panel, listen to what they're saying, send a follow-up email or on LinkedIn and say, I was there, I listened to this speech, it resonate with what we're doing, shall we get a coffee, or shall we discuss more business? So really, how companies should start is really doing research and then selecting what's best, what's aligned best for them in terms of value, in terms of maturity, and in terms of speed. And after that, really, yeah, classic introduction and networking. So I think this is the starting point.
I want to go back to what you said about the financials. So when you said look into companies' financials, I mean, obviously you can get information on company's house. If they're a publicly listed company, that's easier. How do you work out what their budget is? And then also, how do you work out what, I guess, pot of money the company would be paying you from? Like whether or not it's, their existing budget for SaaS subscription
Yes.
or, marketing, blah, blah, blah.
So, well, it's not always clear, right? But if a company, generally a big corporate, is starting their corporate venture capital arm, or they're investing a lot in innovation, generally on the financial statement or corporate news or all this sort of thing, you're gonna find a number like, oh, we're investing 100 millions in AI or whatever. That will give you a sense of their appetite in terms of doing things. Sometimes it's not clear, they don't know the budget. It's very gray, but you need to understand their appetites and the budget. When it comes to understand the budget for POCs and partnership, what I often says to startups is that most of corporates has budget to work with. Big I don't know, EY, PwC, whatever, they have budget to do cool innovative consulting things. So they shouldn't be worried about how much budget do they have. They should be more worried about what kind of value me as a startup can I deliver to them, and how can I show that. So if a project is very important and it fit within their corporate strategy, um, money gonna be found. You can, I have a lot of example in my past where we found, hundreds of millions to acquire or invest because the project was so strategic. So it's always more important to focus on, the value that I can bring to the corporates, show them, and then find the budget for it, which is, once you show the value and that your tech or your product works, then it's just a matter of understanding, okay, well, I have this product, it's going to save you X amount of money on claims or on customer experience, or, I'm going to cut 35% of total cost of your company. Then, we can discuss budget, because if you show value, then it's going to be kind of easy for them. Understanding budget, it's an art. My advice is to identify the champion in the company that could help you, trying to establish a very good relationship, not only professional, but even sometimes, personal, invite for coffee, for drinks, discuss things, and trying to find out actually what motivates them, what are their KPIs, and trying to understand, again, their appetite to do things, but ultimately, ask, for example, the previous experience with POCs or pilots. How did they pay this? How did this POC went? Did it went well? What kind of budget did they put behind it? So you can understand the sense of historical data on their approach to deal with startups, so you can even understand their enthusiasm.
Do you have any advice for founders where the efficacy of their product depends on how well the company integrates it or adapts it? Like maybe the end result isn't fully under the founder's control, and some of it will depend on, how much they dedicate to employee education or something like that. Like what's the best way to for founders to
Mm.
set that type of relationship up for success?
I think when you do a pilot or a POC, right, it's of course, you as a company, as a startup, you want to succeed and you want to prove it. But end of the day, you do a pilot or POC because you don't know if it's gonna work. You might have the best tech in the world, but the corporate is not ready, or they might have as you were saying at the beginning, a killing procurement process, or killing cloud computing procurement process. So the best way for me to go about, around this, and I have a lot of experience, to be honest, unfortunately, is really, again, once again, understanding their appetite to do this, and understanding their blockers. What I mean with that is, you need to identify in the company, if, for example, I am the innovation department and I have X amount of budget to do POCs, who is my blocker as an innovation manager? Might be IT security, might be procurement. So try to identify early in the stage those blockers, bring them all in a call or in a sort of workshop, and trying to understand what can you do with them in order to speed up this process. How can you make them more agile? So it's really about understanding the KPIs and the blockers, and trying to align as much as you can with their concern, but also with your objective. There's no there's not a single easy answer to that. I would say that it's difficult to come up with a perfect solution that works well and integrate well. But if you know the stage, if you know their appetite, if you know the infrastructure, if you know the blockers, this will give you a sort of roadmap on what to do, how to avoid things, and come up with solution that could benefit you and the corporate.
When founders are trying to figure out who to target, maybe for companies that don't have the corporate development or like the startup development side of their team, how do you suggest they figure out like the title of the person who they should target? Like that's something that Purdy and I, it took us a while to kind of figure out that there's like actually a specific job title that's usually the decision maker when it comes to
Yeah.
partnerships. Once we learned that, it made things a lot easier. Is there any advice you have around that?
Yes, but keep in mind that it's very complicated. Like every company is different, every structure is different. But there are, for example, as I was saying, the innovation department is there generally to spend money that they are allocated to the innovation department to run POC. So generally, the first point of contact should be good. Corporate venture capital, they're generally a good entry point because again, this department that they are there to invest, right, on behalf of a big corporation, they generally have loads of budget, not dedicated to do partnership, but they can, they might be dedicated on investing after a POC or pilot is successful. So they might be able to, send you in the right direction. Depending on your product, digital transformation, project manager on digital transformation, open innovation. Um, the head, generally the partnership, head of partnership, um, they are generally those people who deal with big external partnership, not specifically with startups. So I wouldn't advise straight away to go to the partnership, head of partnership, or this sort of role directly. However, if you're lucky and you get in touch with them, you can ask for, is it you the right person that deal with potential pilots or partnership with tech vendors or startups, or is that someone else? So it's yeah, every company is different. There's no a single answer to that, but I would say again, as I said, innovation, digital, open innovation, corporate venture capital are generally very good. And yeah, and understanding actually how this department are structured inside the company, and go after specific people. For example, if you again working in, I don't know, insurance now, and you have a solution for claims, of course, one of the key person that I would get in touch with would probably be the head of claims. Now, I probably won't have any answer because they're very busy, but look who is in that department, in that team, and trying to get through them, trying to motivate them, try to give them a bit of yeah, insight about your company and why they should, well, possibly they could benefit of your solution.
I have a good friend who's selling to larger enterprises, and he said initially he went in with a value proposition of, here's how much we can save you. But then as it turned out, this company, I think they were gunning for an acquisition, and the people who were considering acquiring them really just cared about revenue. So the company was not incentivized at all to try to use a product to save them money, only if it would generate more money. Um,
Yeah.
do you see a lot of value in going into those conversations with like the actual monetary value attached of this is how much we can either generate for you or save you? I mean, that focus will be different for you for each company. But
Yeah.
are people making decisions based on that type of thing?
Yeah, I think in my experience, we were partnering with companies on 3 or 4 parameters. One, of course, access to market, and meaning, sales increase. Then the other one was, brand awareness, or, a good story or something that we could get out of it. And then cost efficiency, maybe reducing our costs, and new market, new business model, etc. So we were partnering, actually throughout my career, they were all partnering around this 4 or 5 dimension. However, when you are a young company, um, and you want to work with a big corporate, the number that you need to provide them in order to say, hey, yeah, I can give you access to this market, you probably don't have that number yet. But you can show them that actually your customer retention is very high, or your product, can cut a lot of costs, or can create more efficiency, etc., etc. And you can tell them, look, we're growing by X percentage per month, so in a year we're gonna have this amount of customers. So I would go into this conversation only if I have a good customer base, and I can show them that actually this customer base is growing. But in my experience, you really need to have a big customer base to, be very, yeah, for them to be very applicable, to be very, yeah, for them to be very interested in you. It's generally better to say, hey, this solution can save you X amount of costs, or you can increase your efficiency by X percentage. These sort of things are generally easier. One is accessing a customer base. Yeah, can be difficult, I would say, because corporates are looking at very big number compared to your number.
I see some questions coming in. I want to touch on trust, pricing, and contracts, and then we'll move to questions. When it comes to trust, some of the founders in the cohort are working in banking or insurance, or something that requires a high level of trust, which as a startup can be difficult to establish. Is there anything that corporates look to when they're considering working with a startup that they use as an indicator of whether or not they should, they can trust the startup even for a proof of concept?
I don't think there's a specific things. Again, all the corporates are different, but in my experience, first of all, they're looking at the team, how the team is structured, how the team is knowledgeable, and it's always about gut feeling. I mean, if you like a person, you can make business much better. It's not universal, but rarely you're gonna enter into a pilot if there's no really a good vibe between their team and your team. So this is the basic of humans, but it's always about gut feeling and how do you go about these things. One other thing that they are definitely looking is corporates are possibly they want to do a POC because they're struggling with something, or they have a mandate from the top, or they have KPIs that tells them, look, we need to lower costs, or we need to whatever the KPIs and strategy. So you need to understand what's that. You need to show them that you understand and you care, and you care about the business, and this. So it's really like trying to have informed decision and conversation about the businesses. And the third part is, once you understand that, what kind of regulation are around that? GDPR, um, any sort of compliance and security question that you could show that you actually prepared to answer, and why they're there, and that you're ready to implement that. That's generally good indicators, because from a corporate side, I would like, oh yeah, they know, they know their business, and they know our business and our limitations. So that could really start creating the trust. And then advocacy, of course, if you know someone within the organization or external to the organization that can give you a bit of more credibility, corporates look at these things 100%. One actually, two things that are very important for me is, often startups don't understand the corporate point of view, which is fair enough. Generally they're slower, they're very complex organization, but they generally, corporates have a brand, have a huge customer base, they're highly regulated, they have very strict KPI. They probably have shareholders. So all of these sort of things, make them really risk averse to have, not successful partnership. So you need to understand, this aspect when you deal with them. So again, understand their KPIs and what keep them awake at night. The second part is that you might be a CEO or CTO, right? But you'll never discuss with the CEO or CTO on the corporate side. So you are the decision maker ultimately in your company, but the person that you are interfacing with is not the same as you. So the KPIs and their the point of view is totally different. So you need to understand that the person that you're discussing is, employed by the company and has different KPIs and mandate. So try to align that with your urgency, possibly to do a pilot. And I think this is, the basics to start building trust. So understanding the other person, being very empathetic, and as I was saying before, advocacy, in knowing someone in an organization or external, writing articles or PR that can give you that sense of, um, create more trust around the name of your company and what you're trying to do. Um, Last point I didn't mention, and it really depends about your stage. Um, Case studies. Now, a lot of or customer success stories. A lot of startups that might not have um, a customer yet, but you need to find a way to gather all your feedbacks and all positive feedback and try to put it together, showing to the organization that you want to work with the potential benefit of your solution. This could boost your credibility. Of course, if you have good brands, if you have good names, put it there. But show them that other people went through the same pain points they're going through now, and those can be solved, and you can be a reliable partner.
Perfect. This kind of ties into the next point. Going off of something you said, like around who the decision maker is.
Mm,
So much of like what Powder and I've learned is you can honestly like just ask people like, okay, who's the one signing off on this? Because as you said, most of the time the person who you're communicating with might not be the end decision maker. And then kind of leading to my next question for you around pricing is Purdy and I have also just found like you can just ask people what the budget is or what's a number that's easier for you to sign off or that like you independently can sign off for versus where additional approval or sign off is needed. And I guess like the trade-off is if you're working with someone's personal budget, it might be a smaller number. And then to get a larger contract in place, that might be a much longer process. But it's interesting working with corporates because sometimes you can go into those conversations with, a massive, massive company worth billions, and you're under this impression that they must have an endless pool of capital. But then trying to figure out what their actual budget is super difficult. So what do you suggest for figuring out pricing for both a POC and then actually like a long-term contract?
yeah, I mean, I would lie if I say that I have the perfect answer. It's very complicated, and it depends by each, you know, different organization working in a different way. In my opinion and my expertise, what worked well was having a flat rate for a specific POC, and then working on value-based pricing. Now, it's very difficult to do that because you need to have information and data from the corporates in order to do a value-based pricing, meaning, you have to focus on their return on investment. For example, you're gonna save X amount of time, you're gonna save X amount of resources, or we're gonna increase your customer base by X percentage. In order to do that, you need to have their data, which is, at the beginning of a relationship, maybe they don't want to share it, but you need to figure out what kind of value you can deliver to them, starting with a small rate or flat fees, and then on top of that saying, look, if we achieve what we want to do with the POC, then we can consider value-based pricing, which always work well because it shows not only your commitment, but even that commitment to come up with a pricing that could be sustainable and focus on value. Again, in my experience, budget can be difficult to find or to unlock it, but be sure that if an organization has a project or something that they really care and they want to push forward, they're gonna find the budget. So don't be scared about, oh, we don't have budget, or I don't know this. You can always find budget. If it's not now, in 6 months or 5 months, but start with something. Start with a flat rate and value-based pricing, and then yeah, you can show them what you can deliver. It's always good to ask corporates about their experience with POC and how they until now maybe run POC. Do they have a flat fees, or do they have a fixed time, or do they have a dedicated team following this? Again, trying to understand how they worked. If they have no idea, which could be most of the time, most likely, um, maybe you bring on the table your expertise or what you've done in the past with POCs. Offer flexible pricing model. Could be usage based, for X amount of users that we're gonna test, then this can be the price. So I think summarizing, you need to have a bit of insight on what they've done until now, and then understanding, of course, why they do the POC and what kind of number or KPIs they want to reach by, let's say, end of the year.
Okay.
And last point, don't discount your POC. I know sometimes it's good to you want to work with a corporate, but again, don't discount your value, because it's if really they don't have budget, then that is a red flag for me on the long term. But if they are struggling with budget, but they see the value and they allocate a lot of resources, a lot of data, good. But they need to commit as well. Yeah.
Okay, last question. When it comes to contracts, founders, especially in the early days, kind of feel like they're at a disadvantage because they'll get a massive, massive contract from the legal department of a large corporate. And then, it's just that them on their end trying to Google all the terms for the contracts and then coming up against things around like one-way confidentiality or indemnity clauses and things
Yeah.
like that. How much can founders actually negotiate on those contracts?
Um, in my experience, not that much. A company like a big company will never take a risk from a startup that's based on 2, 3, 5 people that may be based, working remotely. You have to understand that these big corporates, they're highly regulated. They have shareholders, again, all the things I said before. So they, the legal team, which are paid a lot, will not take a risk. So in my opinion, at least in all the companies, um, there's not much flexibility. However, find a way around that. Can you work with, their external partners, incubators, accelerator, for example? Do they have another legal entity that might be less, strict? Do they, like there can be way around, but don't expect that a corporate with X million customer will change those legal terms for you, especially when there's a lot of data issue or sensitivity, this sort of things, security. Um, in my experience, they're not very flexible. However, it really depends.
Right.
Hope that answered the question.
Gonna go to questions now. Um, I'll just say like one of the things that we've learned from our experience is that like even though you're selling to a large corporate, you're still also selling to a person. And so developing like those type of
Uh,
relationships with the people that you're selling to, especially because they're, it can take a long time for the deal to close. And then hopefully you're working with the person for an ongoing basis. Like you can end up having great relationships with people, which I think really helps. Pretty, I see your hand raising. So maybe you want to add on to that as you lead that side of.
No,
Yeah.
I'm just raising my hand because Leon messaged me and said that there are some questions. So, Leon, do you want to ask your questions? I know you've put them in you've put in a direct message to me as well, so I can ask if not. But feel free to take yourself off mute and ask away.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Hey.
I think I'm on twice. Can you hear me twice?
No, just once.
Thanks, yeah.
Okay, great. So I've got two questions. First of all, thanks very much. I was approached by a supermarket buyer out of the blue asking to place an order. They copied in a local store manager and she's waiting to hear about quantities. So I didn't hear for 2 weeks. I left a message. I didn't hear for another 2 weeks. I left another message. I haven't heard for 3 weeks. I don't want to harass the lady if she's got no news. I'm obviously very keen. I hear that supermarkets can take 6 months to place an order. So I'm just wondering how long to leave it before I just make another attempt at contacting her. That's the first question. Second one is, once I start supplying, presuming I start supplying, I'm considering approaching other supermarket buyers on a FOMO basis. That they might not want to miss out if I've got my product in one shop. I wondered if you got any thoughts on that.
The first question, how, it really depends, to be honest, but I would probably ask for clarification, say, look, I need, essentially you can't say that, but you basically need to get in touch with them saying, look, is there an expected, time frame that I'm gonna receive your answer, or is, how do you guys work? So I would really focus on understanding their way of working, if it's normal to wait all this time, or if there's some sort of procurement process going underneath, or some legal restriction. I don't know that, but I would generally be very upfront saying, look, I need to understand how you work so I can plan my stock or whatever around my business, so I can better forecast my order. And yeah, so again, simply I'll be very upfront and I will ask them. If they're not replying, then yeah, just trying to figure out why. The second question, FOMO. I don't know. I have to be honest, I don't know. In my experience, it doesn't really work in center industries. In other very competitive, possibly if you are already working with a supermarket, so meaning you went through the procurement process and all those sort of things, it might be already appealing to the competitors because they're like, oh well, if they went through them, for sure they can go through us, so we can maybe engage with them. Um, I, I have to be honest, I wouldn't know what to suggest here. I know that in my previous industry, for example, banking, insurance, we were not really looking forward to work with companies working with certain competitors, but we were looking a lot on how many corporate partners these startups had, maybe outside insurance, for example. So that would give us an indication of, oh well, if a lot of corporates are working with this company, there must be something in it. And they're probably expert in all procurement process, KPI, etc. So they might be mature enough to work together. So yeah.
I see, Pina, we're going to go to you in just a second. I'm going to take a question in the chat first. It's from John. John, I don't know if you want to come on and ask it live, or if you just want me to read it from the chat. And by the way, you've cutest little kid ever.
I've got some company due to some unexpected childcare stuff. So If it gets a bit noisy, I might switch it. Basically, the question is, we've been approached by a business that we partner with to build a product that's a component of our app, about acquiring us through a paper deal, which would inflate their valuation as they approach their own exit, and so potentially give us a reasonably rapid return if everything went right. I guess one of the questions that I'm staring really hard at is how we substantiate their claims about their own valuation, and I wondered if you had any input on how, you know, the sorts of questions you're asking on that front.
So the question is, how can you be sure that the evaluation is right?
I suppose,
that,
you know,
yeah.
it almost feels like some of the due diligence you get with investment is reversed, and we're the ones asking the questions, which is slightly uncomfortable, I suppose. But also, you know, really interested in what questions you would have front of mind, because there may well be things that you would ask. Sorry, that we thought of.
In my previous experience, I have to be honest that I've seen certain evaluation that they were a bit over the top. Do you have any VCs, any friends or anyone that you trust that could really give you a sort of objective view on their evaluation? Because a lot of evaluation are just made on, you know, future, you know, of course, recurring revenue, but even future market opportunities, scalability, all these sort of things, and sometimes they're a bit vague. So I would first, of course, ask them how they reach the evaluation, and then ask around to, for example, VCs or Ps or someone that you know within your network to give you an opinion. Once you get 2 or 3 opinion and they are either equal or different, you might have the answer. I know it's not the best answer that I could give you, but evaluation are so
it's very helpful. I mean,
yeah.
Sorry about this. I guess my kind of sub question was, how much detail can we be comfortable? So I've gone down the road rather uncomfortably of asking for kind of proof of signed contracts with clients.
Yeah. Yes.
So I mean, you think that's perfectly fair in that context?
Yeah, of course, they want to acquire you. So I think, you know, you are the one selling, and you want to know to whom are you selling and why and what's the value in it. So of course you sign an NDA and all the sort of things. These things should be discussed. Otherwise you can't just sell to a black box, you know.
Perfect. Okay, Pinar, will go on to you.
Yes, thank you, Filippo. I have 2 quick questions. One is, how early is too early to, you know, signal your intention? It's a bit aligned with Anne France's point. You know, like when you are too early on your journey, although you could have a vision and partnership in future, I assume that you know, the time frame should be. I mean, if you need to give a time frame, how many years, months would you give? And the second one is just a quick one. If the corporation usually outsource their due diligence process or not? If they outsource, what kind of institution we could expect to have a conversation? Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't get the first part of the question, sorry, but I can ask you straight away this. I can reply the second one around due diligence. Generally, in my opinion, outsourced due diligence is when corporate venture capital or, you know, big investment are done. So that, you know, they basically sometimes partner with IT companies that they basically do due diligence on their behalf, and they run a thorough due diligence. Internally, if you do a POC, a pilot, the due diligence should be done internally. Generally is from the, of course, the, you know, basic innovation department. Then there's all the procurement side of things, you know, checking your company house, all the sort of documents, understanding if you're a real business, understanding if you, you know, just, yeah, essentially if you're a real business and it's, you know, not a dodgy business, and that's done by procurement generally. then you go into the IT side of things. Depending on your solution, there's generally the securities or SOC team that they do all the pen tests or all the sort of things according to your solution, where they're basically testing that your solution, is fit for their cybersecurity structure. What else is generally there? Oh, of course, cloud computing. I mean, of course I'm working cloud computing, and we do a lot of this cloud procurement process. Generally, is done internally. So again, I would say for a pilot of POC, generally it's done internally. For investment, it's generally done externally. And the first question that you asked about,
Yeah, first question is, let's say I see a potential to be acquired by a corporation in 4 years' time, let's say. And it's
Yeah.
important to have an early relationship with potential people to identify who could be the champion and stuff. But at an earlier stage, you are quite in a vulnerable, weaker position that might, not necessarily be fruitful for in longer term. So is there a sweet spot that, at this stage it's better to have a connection with corporations?
I think in my experience, M&A happens after a long process of partnering, POC, possible investment if they have a corporate venture capital, and after that, acquiring. So it's a long journey generally. It could be years or generally years. Come on, can be less than that. I think when your product is mature enough to be considered by the corporate team, you don't want to start conversation too early with nothing and basically basically not being able to show them the value. I think if you have someone that you are sure or could be on the way to they could acquire you, then work around your credibility, your trust with other corporates, get the numbers, get the things, and when you're ready and you're sure that your product is up and running and working and you have all the certification and you get a good customer stories to tell them, that's the moment. You can even start conversation early in the day. I mean, there are examples where companies got acquired and the conversation start very early stage. But it depends about your product. If it's highly technical or innovative, then yes, you can co-create and work early stage. But if not, prove your product and company before starting conversation. Yeah.
Thank
Right.
you.
We've got about 3 questions to try to get through in the next 8 minutes or so. Question from Mark. Do you have any advice on how to navigate larger enterprises which have different levels of incentive across different management layers? I worked on a product which reduced labor costs but increased contract margins for customers. Leaders in large corporations got it, but middle managers were rewarded. There's a little bit more to that question. Mark, is there anything that you want to just come on and ask it live?
It's a interesting question.
I think so. Particularly if you're being disruptive, you're disrupting their current model and their current incentives. And particularly if you've got champions high up, they don't always filter down the incentives down the management structure, and they then become the blockers for the actual POCs and the managers on the ground who would deploy it. So if you've got anything beyond making the higher ups aware that they've actually got internal structure problems, it's not to do with your value prop, it's to do with how they're incentivizing their middle management.
Very interesting question. I was thinking about examples that I had in the past, mainly all about HR transformation or these sort of things. So how to avoid that? I don't know how to answer that now. Let me think about it. I'll come back to you. There are strategies for sure. Of course, to identify champions in the companies, understanding what's going on in the company. Again, we go back to what I was saying before. You really need to understand how a company works and what are the blockers. However, things on a corporate level sometimes change very rapidly. Change of management, or these sort of things that can affect your ability to deliver the POC. So the only answer that I could give you now is understanding how the corporate works and find someone that could help you navigating those issues, and identify someone that really believes in your product that can help you pushing it through. But yeah, I will have to think about more. I'll come back to you on that.
Right. We can also throw a couple questions at Jeremy when he comes in at 11. He's at Zendesk now, and he ran an accelerator too, and might have some advice on hacking the corporate.
Jeremy is a good one, so he can answer the difficult question.
Okay, another question from Wes. Any advice on how and who to approach corporations in order to discuss providing their employees with spinal health products? So I guess like anything in the employee wellness space, who's the best person to talk to?
Well, it depends about the size of the organization. Sometimes those sort of programs are under HR. Other times are under different departments. In my experience, those they're always under HR, to be honest. HR transformation or employee engagement or internal engagement sort of roles. It really depends about the country and the corporation. I think American companies have more specific department or dedicated people on this. But I think I would start from HR, from the HR department.
And then question from Pody, really good question. How often is exclusivity a part of a contract or POC?
How often? I can't answer that because there's so many companies, but be sure if a company is interested in you and they want to do a POC, they'll probably ask for exclusivity. Although, for example, in my previous company that I was working at the insurance, we were very strict on certain data and AI function because we didn't want the company to train on our data and then use the learning to go after other corporates. It really depends. If a company is really interested in you, they for sure they're going to be very strict in terms of exclusivity. You have always to evaluate if that exclusivity will damage your potential growth path, and for how long that exclusivity is. If it's just for 2 months or 3 months, well, then it's just a POC. But if you have already aligned 10 POCs and that exclusivity will or pilot, and that exclusivity will block you from being able to scale your business, then it can be a bit detrimental. But corporate loves exclusivity.
Can you ever push back on exclusivity? Obviously, like with AI stuff, data stuff, I get it, but do you have to just take it when
No. I think because you are showing them your value doesn't mean that you have to give your value totally. So if you can, and if it makes sense, I would find a mid ground. Maybe keep the exclusivity, but you can put different clause. It could be timing, could be anything really that can. Yes, you still have the exclusivity, but there are more terms on it.
Perfect. Okay, we're gonna wrap things there. Filippo, thanks so much. I'm
Thank you.
going to share a little bit about OVH Cloud. Can you share a little bit about how you guys work with startups and then your offer as well?
Yeah, sure. So we have around 4,000 companies now in our program. We offer essentially free cloud credits, access to AI solutions, storage, and all cloud solutions that you can imagine. And on top of that, we offer access to market, VCs, corporates, and free tech support. So essentially, we are there to support you not only on the free tech side of things, but also on your access to market. And so, yeah, if you want to know more, happy to guide you and explain you more.
Perfect. All right. Perdi,
Thank
do you
you.
want to? Oh, actually, let's say goodbye to Filippo. Thank you so much. We're gonna link your LinkedIn with the notes we send afterwards with the founders and the
Thank you.
OVHs too. Jeremy says hi.
Hey everybody, Jeremy Ambrose from Zendesk. Yes, I work in the VC partnerships team. So my day-to-day is very much working with VCs, with accelerators, with other startup champions in the ecosystem, like Filippo as well. In fact, we've got an event at Web Summit next week with Filippo and OVH Cloud, so we work quite well together. I'm here to support startups on their growth journey. If I can help them with any kind of overcoming inflection points, opening up the little black book that I've got. And if it's tailored towards CX strategy, customer experience, then even better. I think it's probably pertinent to talk about my background. I'm also a co-founder and director of a large accelerator in the UK, which we sold in 2018 to NatWest. Some of you may have been through it, or some of you may have actually gone through or been part of. My company is Entrepreneurial Spark, and they run the NatWest Accelerator now, which used to be Entrepreneurial Spark. But anyway, carried on running that from 2018 through to now. It's still going, and we now work with many people across the globe, but primarily the UK Space Agency to drive scale and growth in startups that are looking to go to space or work in the space sector, which has been really interesting. But yeah, today is mainly about CX and customers and putting the love back into our customers that we should be giving them. So pleasure to be here. Yeah, and I'm so glad that it's an interactive session. We get more out of it when everybody kind of puts in their experiences, share best practice, and goes from there. So yeah, that's me.
So every week